The bold and the beautiful has always thrived on the tension between desire and consequence, between the intoxicating pull of love and the quiet terror of what that love might destroy. As the week of January 5th begins, the storylines unfolding do not merely promise romance or scandal, they promise emotional reckoning. At the heart of these revelations lies a sharp contrast between two paths that appear to be moving in opposite directions yet are bound by the same underlying truth. Love, when pursued without restraint or reflection, can either redeem or devastate. On one side stands Carter Walton, poised to make a bold declaration that could anchor two lives together forever. On the other stands Taylor Hayes, drifting closer to a line she has spent years warning others never to cross. Around them, the ripple effects spread outward, threatening to awaken old monsters, ignite dormant fears, and force characters to confront not just what they want, but what they are willing to risk in order to have it. For Carter Walton, the decision to kneel on one knee is not impulsive in the careless sense, even if it appears sudden to those watching from the outside. His journey toward this moment has been marked by quiet longing, by years of emotional restraint shaped by disappointments that taught him to guard his heart carefully. When Daphne Rose entered his life, she did not arrive as a whirlwind or a fantasy, but as something far more unsettling, a genuine sense of peace mixed with vulnerability. With Daphne, Carter did not feel the need to perform or to prove himself. He felt seen. That realization, however, carried its own weight. To recognize that one person has the power to soften long-held defenses is exhilarating, but it is also terrifying, because it means handing someone else the ability to wound you in ways no rival or enemy ever could. Daphne Rose, for her part, has been slowly awakening to the depth of her own feelings, and it is precisely that awakening that fills her with fear. Love, when it reaches a certain intensity, ceases to feel romantic and begins to feel dangerous. Daphne senses this shift within herself. What once felt like happiness now feels like a precipice. She begins to recognize how deeply Carter has embedded himself into her sense of safety and belonging, and that realization sparks an instinct to retreat. Pushing him away becomes less about rejecting him and more about protecting herself from the possibility of losing him, from the devastation that might follow if this fragile joy were to collapse. Her hesitation is not rooted in doubt about Carter's sincerity, but in doubt about her own ability to survive the aftermath should everything fall apart. Carter, however, refuses to misinterpret Daphne's fear as a lack of love. His resolve is shaped by a clarity he has rarely felt before. For once, he knows exactly what he wants, and that certainty steels him against the instinct to step back when resistance appears. His choice to propose is not simply a romantic gesture designed to sweep Daphne off her feet. It is a declaration of intention. By kneeling before her, he is offering not just a ring, but a promise to face uncertainty together rather than allowing fear to dictate the course of their relationship. In doing so, Carter places his heart fully in Daphne's hands, accepting the risk as the necessary price of authenticity. The shock Daphne experiences in response to the proposal is layered and profound. It is not merely surprise at the speed with which Carter wishes to formalize their bond, but a confrontation with her own desires laid bare. The future she has been cautiously avoiding suddenly stands directly in front of her, tangible and undeniable. In that moment, Daphne must grapple with the question of whether love is worth the vulnerability it demands. Carter's confession of love, his vision of a shared future, strips away her ability to hide behind ambiguity. The proposal forces her to choose not between Carter and solitude, but between courage and fear. For fans, the rapid progression toward engagement and wedding planning may feel like a welcome burst of optimism, a reminder that happiness is still possible in a world so often dominated by betrayal and loss. Yet even this hopeful arc carries an undercurrent of tension. A swift engagement can magnify unresolved doubts rather than erase them. And the promise of a bright 2026 for Carter and Daphne hinges on their ability to navigate these emotional complexities with honesty. Their love story, The Luminous, is not immune to the pressures that have undone so many before them. It is precisely this balance between hope and uncertainty that makes their journey compelling, inviting viewers to believe in romance while remaining acutely aware of how fragile it can be. While Carter and Daphne stand on the threshold of a new beginning, Taylor Hayes finds herself drifting toward a far more dangerous edge. As a therapist, Taylor has built her identity around the principles of boundaries, self-awareness, and emotional responsibility. Yet her growing closeness with Deacon Sharp exposes a vulnerability she may have underestimated. Their interactions, initially grounded in therapeutic context, begin to blur into something more intimate, more personal. The danger does not announce itself loudly, it creeps in through shared moments of understanding, through the comfort of being truly heard. Taylor's empathy, once her greatest strength, becomes the very thing that places her at risk. The irony of Taylor's situation is striking. She knows better than most how easily emotional dependence can form, how quickly professional lines can dissolve when personal needs go unmet. Yet knowledge does not always grant immunity. In Deacon, Taylor finds someone who reflects back her compassion, someone who responds to her insight with gratitude and warmth. This mutual recognition fosters a bond that feels increasingly difficult to categorize, and therein lies the danger. Taylor's internal conflict intensifies as she struggles to reconcile her role as a healer with her role as a woman yearning for connection. Deacon Sharp, too, senses the precariousness of their growing closeness. His concern is not merely for himself, but for the fallout that could ensue if Sheila Sharp were to discover the depth of this emotional intimacy. Sheila's volatile nature looms over every interaction, an unspoken threat that turns even innocent moments into potential catalysts for chaos. Deacon understands better than anyone how easily Sheila's sense of betrayal can spiral into obsession and violence. His awareness adds a layer of tension to his interactions with Taylor, as desire and dread coexist uneasily within him. Sheila Sharp's presence, though not always visible, dominates this storyline like a gathering storm. In her mind, Taylor represents more than a potential rival. She embodies a threat to the fragile stability Sheila believes she has secured. Sheila's tendency to frame herself as a victim fuels her perception of Taylor as an interloper, someone undermining her marriage under the guise of professionalism. This distorted narrative, once activated, has the power to unleash consequences far beyond what Taylor or Deacon may anticipate. The danger lies not only in what is happening, but in what Sheila might imagine is happening, and how she chooses to respond to that imagined betrayal. As Taylor continues to play with fire, she becomes increasingly aware that every step closer to Deacon is also a step deeper into a moral and emotional quagmire. The boundaries she has crossed, even if only internally, begin to weigh on her conscience. She is forced to confront the possibility that her actions, however unintentional, could harm not just herself but those around her. This realization intensifies her internal struggle as she weighs the comfort she finds in Deacon's presence against the professional and ethical cost of allowing that comfort to grow. The situation escalates further when Steffy Forrester Finnegan uncovers the truth about her mother's feelings. Steffi's reaction is swift and fierce, fueled by a lifetime of witnessing the destructive patterns that have haunted her family. To Steffi, this revelation is not a private matter of the heart, but a potential trigger for catastrophe. Her fear is rooted in experience. She knows all too well how Sheila reacts when she feels threatened, and the thought of reigniting that chaos fills her with rage and dread. Steffi's anger is not solely directed at Taylor, but at the situation itself, at the recurring cycle of danger that seems impossible to escape. For Steffi, the discovery forces her into a protective stance that blurs the line between concern and control. She feels compelled to intervene, to stop her mother from making a choice that could endanger them all. This dynamic introduces another layer of conflict, as Taylor must now contend not only with her own conscience, but with her daughter's judgment. The emotional distance that may arise between them threatens to deepen existing fractures, adding familial tension to an already volatile mix. As these storylines converge, the theme that emerges most powerfully is the question of limits. How far is Carter willing to go in proving his devotion, and can Daphne accept that devotion without losing herself? How close can Taylor allow herself to grow to Deacon before she betrays the principles she has lived by? How much risk can Deacon tolerate before fear outweighs desire? And how far will Sheila go to protect what she believes is hers? Each character stands at a crossroads, forced to define not only what they want, but what they are willing to sacrifice to achieve it. The brilliance of these unfolding events lies in their emotional symmetry. While Carter and Daphne move toward commitment as a way of confronting fear together, Taylor and Deacon edge toward danger by allowing unspoken feelings to linger. One storyline celebrates the possibility of love as a stabilizing force, while the other warns of love's capacity to destabilize when left unchecked. Together, they create a narrative tension that captures the essence of the bold and the beautiful, the constant interplay between hope and peril, between the promise of happiness and the shadow of consequence. As the week progresses, viewers are invited not merely to witness dramatic developments, but to reflect on the deeper emotional truths they reveal. Love, in this world, is never simple. It demands courage, honesty, and restraint in equal measure. Whether it leads to a joyful union or a devastating unraveling depends not on fate alone, but on the choices each character makes when confronted with their own vulnerability. In the days ahead, Carter's kneeling proposal and Taylor's dangerous proximity to Deacon will serve as mirrors, reflecting the best and worst possibilities of the human heart. And as always in this world, the question is not whether love will change everything, but how much damage or healing it will leave in its wake. The bold and the beautiful has always understood that reinvention is not merely a narrative device, but a survival instinct. Its world is built on cycles of legacy and rebellion, inheritance and rupture, where each new generation does not erase the past but collides with it, reshaping familiar power structures in unpredictable ways. The imminent return of R.J. Forrester, absent since 2024, is not framed as a simple homecoming, but as a strategic re-entry into a battlefield already aflame. Los Angeles is once again the epicenter of a fashion war, and this time the conflict cuts through bloodlines, marriages, and identities with a precision that feels both inevitable and volatile. RJ's return signals a deliberate shift in focus, a reminder that the future of the Forrester and Spencer dynasties will no longer be negotiated solely by their patriarchs and matriarchs, but seized by their heirs. R.J. Forrester's reappearance arrives at a moment when the balance of power is already dangerously unstable. The rivalry between Brooke Logan and Katie Logan, once rooted in shared history and complicated loyalty, has evolved into a full-scale ideological and creative war. Fashion, in this context, is no longer merely an industry but a language of dominance, a way to define whose vision will shape the cultural and economic narrative of Los Angeles. Into this charged environment steps RJ, a figure who embodies convergence, the son of Brooke Logan and Ridge Forrester, carrying within him the DNA of two legacies that have spent decades alternately loving, wounding, and undermining each other. His presence alone is enough to complicate every alliance, because RJ is not just returning as a designer or a family member, but as a symbol of continuity and disruption at once. The decision to bring RJ back as the next generation steps into the spotlight reflects a conscious recalibration of the show's emotional architecture. For years, viewers have watched the elders of the Forrester and Spencer clans reenact variations of the same battles, fueled by pride, betrayal, and unresolved desire. Now, those battles are being reframed through younger eyes, not as inherited grudges, but as challenges to be confronted and possibly transcended. RJ's return suggests that the question is no longer whether history will repeat itself, but how the new generation will choose to reinterpret it. Will they become prisoners of their parents' conflicts, or architects of something radically different? This generational shift gains sharper definition through the anticipated clash between RJ and Will Spencer. The notion of a renewed Spencer-Forrester rivalry is not nostalgia-driven fan service, but a logical progression rooted in the show's internal logic. Their fathers, Bill Spencer and Ridge Forrester, have spent years locked in a cycle of competition and mutual provocation, each clash leaving scars that never fully healed. When Liam's legal maneuvering granted Katie Logan the right to use the Logan name, the resulting confrontation between Bill and Ridge served as a catalyst, reactivating old hostilities under the guise of a new dispute. That explosive argument was less about a name than about legacy, about who gets to define the future while claiming ownership of the past. In that sense, the stage is already set for RJ and Will to inherit not just their father's ambitions, but their unresolved animosities. Bradley Bell's acknowledgement that viewers are finally witnessing a confrontation once thought impossible carries an undercurrent of thematic resonance. The idea that time itself has conspired to bring these characters into direct opposition underscores one of the show's core truths. Destiny in this world is not fixed, but it is persistent. RJ and Will were born into a narrative shaped long before they could speak, and yet their adulthood offers a chance to interrogate that narrative rather than simply reenact it. Their rivalry, when it unfolds, will not merely echo the past but test whether the next generation possesses the imagination and courage to break free from it. To understand the significance of RJ's return, one must revisit who he is at his core. Born in 2004, RJ Forrester grew up on the margins of greatness, surrounded by icons yet often overshadowed by them. His early years were defined by the push and pull between Brooke Logan's fierce independence and Ridge Forrester's commanding presence to forces that shaped his understanding of love, ambition, and identity. When he returned to Los Angeles in 2023 as a social media star, RJ appeared to embody a modern sensibility, fluent in digital influence and cultural trends. Yet beneath that contemporary exterior lay an inherited gift he could neither deny nor fully escape, an instinctive understanding of design, of how fabric, form, and emotion intertwine to create meaning. Joining Forrester Creations was not simply a career move, but a reckoning. It forced RJ to confront the weight of his surname and the expectations attached to it. In the halls of the fashion house, he was not just a young talent, but a Forrester constantly measured against a legacy of innovation and dominance. It was there that he encountered Luna Nozawa, an intern whose quiet demeanor masked a labyrinth of secrets. Their relationship began with understated simplicity, a meeting of curiosity and shared vulnerability. For RJ, Luna represented a space outside the suffocating glare of his family name, someone who seemed to see him as a person rather than a symbol. That illusion of safety, however, proved tragically fragile, as Luna's true nature emerged, revealing a darkness far more calculated and destructive than anyone anticipated. RJ was forced into an emotional crucible. Her manipulations did not merely threaten his career or reputation. They destabilized his sense of trust itself. The revelation that someone he cared for could harbor such profound malice shattered his assumptions about intimacy and intention. In enduring Luna's unraveling, RJ confronted a truth that would mark him indelibly. Talent and charm can coexist with cruelty, and love does not always announce itself as a threat until it is too late. Luna's eventual death, while removing an immediate danger, did not erase the psychological residue of that experience. Instead, it created a vacuum in which unresolved grief and unanswered questions lingered. RJ's absence from Los Angeles following those events can be read not as retreat, but as necessary exile, a period of recalibration away from a city that had become synonymous with betrayal and loss. His return now suggests not only safety but readiness, an indication that he has processed enough of that trauma to re-engage with the world that once wounded him. The timing of RJ's re-entry is critical. With the fashion war between Brooke and Katie escalating, Forrester Creations stands at a crossroads. Creativity has become weaponized, with each collection functioning as both artistic statement and strategic strike. In this environment, RJ's talent is not a luxury but a necessity. His perspective, shaped by both heritage and hardship, offers the possibility of innovation that honors tradition without being enslaved by it. Yet, that same positioning exposes him to exploitation, as various factions seek to claim his allegiance for their own ends. Brooke Logan's relationship with her son adds another layer of complexity. As a mother, Brooke has always oscillated between fierce protectiveness and an unyielding belief in self-determination. She understands better than most how easily the fashion world devours the young and idealistic. And yet she also recognizes that shielding RJ from that world would deny him the opportunity to define himself on his own terms. Her rivalry with Katie intensifies this tension, as any move RJ makes risks being interpreted as a political statement rather than a personal choice. Brooke must grapple with the fear that her son could become collateral damage in a war she helped ignite. Ridge Forrester, too, faces a reckoning through RJ's return. As a father and creative titan, Ridge embodies the paradox of mentorship and control. He wants to see RJ succeed, but success within the Forrester framework often comes at the cost of autonomy. Ridge's history is littered with moments where his need to dominate eclipsed his ability to nurture, and RJ's emergence as a formidable talent threatens to reopen those wounds. The question for Ridge is not whether RJ is capable, but whether he can resist the urge to mold his son in his own image rather than allowing him to evolve independently. The casting of Brian Nicoletti as the new RJ Forrester adds a metatextual layer to this transformation. Recasting is always a declaration of intent, signaling not just a change in appearance, but a recalibration of energy and tone. Nicoletti's background in theater and short films suggests a performer attuned to nuance, capable of conveying internal conflict with subtlety rather than excess. His transition into daytime television marks a significant milestone, both for the actor and for the character he inhabits. This new RJ is poised to feel more grounded, more introspective, carrying the scars of past experiences while projecting a quiet confidence earned through survival. The choice to introduce Nicoletti during a period of heightened narrative tension underscores the show's commitment to integrating character evolution with plot momentum. RJ's return is not isolated from the broader storylines, but embedded within them, ensuring that his development will be shaped by conflict rather than comfort. As the fashion war intensifies and the Spencer-Forrester rivalry reignites, RJ will be forced to articulate his values through action. Each decision he makes will reverberate beyond personal ambition, influencing alliances and reshaping power dynamics across Los Angeles. What makes RJ's arc particularly compelling is its potential to redefine masculinity within the show's universe. Unlike predecessors who often equated strength with dominance, RJ's strength may lie in adaptability, in the ability to learn from trauma rather than be consumed by it. His experiences with Luna have sensitized him to the dangers of blind trust, but they have also deepened his empathy. This duality positions him as a bridge between generations, someone capable of honoring legacy without replicating its most destructive patterns. As the new year unfolds, RJ Forrester's return promises not resolution but acceleration. The conflicts he steps into are far from settled, and his presence is likely to intensify them rather than soothe them. Yet within that escalation lies possibility. By centering the narrative on the next generation, The Bold and the Beautiful invites viewers to consider whether history must always repeat itself, or whether it can be rewritten through conscious choice. RJ's journey will test that proposition, forcing him to navigate love and rivalry, loyalty and ambition, memory and reinvention. In the end, RJ Forrester's comeback is less about reclaiming a place he once held and more about claiming a future that has yet to be defined. His talent, sharpened by absence and adversity, will be both his weapon and his burden. As Los Angeles becomes the arena for a new chapter in the fashion war, RJ stands poised at its center, carrying the hopes and fears of two dynasties on his shoulders. Whether he emerges as a unifying force or a catalyst for deeper division remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: his return ensures that the battle for legacy, identity, and creative dominance is far from over.